Following up on the success of the first Resident Evil Revelations game came a sequel. Just like the original, this game was episodic, with 4 separate episodes released on different dates, and each episode itself is split into 2. First, there's Claire's campaign. In true Resident Evil fashion, this sequel shifts the attention from Chris and Jill and focuses on Claire Redfield. She's not quite the action star that she used to be. There's no slow motion gun drops and taking on armies of Umbrella's men here. In fact, she doesn't have much personality at all. She comes across as a no-nonsense kind of hero.
Was it good for you too? Come on, let's just get out of here.
Teaming up with her is the potty-mouthed Moira.
Who the fuck is quoting poetry?
Well, fuck that place very much. I'll get right the fuck out.
The dialogue in the game is okay, which is a shame because it used to be so bad it was good, but now it's a little bland. In fact, the best lines are the ones that reference how bad the lines used to be.
Oh my god, are you okay?
Yeah, that was almost a Claire sandwich.
Ugh, does Barry tell everyone that story?
Which leads us on nicely to Barry Burton. It's awesome that we finally get to see this fan favourite take a leading role. Each episode begins with Claire and Moira, then there's a mid-episode break, and then it jumps 6 months forward to Barry and a young girl called Natalia. In each of the 2 pairings, one character is the fighter, and the other acts as more of a scout. So for example, Natalia and Moira, the scout characters, can discover hidden items in the environment. Natalia can see enemies through walls and can throw bricks. Moira can blind enemies with her flashlight and then melee them with her crowbar. They are given stuff to do, but I feel like when playing in split screen cooperatively, whoever is playing as these 2 gets the short end of the stick. After all, who wants to be left opening doors while the other person gets to be doing the fighting?
Quarantine procedures activated. Locking all doors now.
In single player mode, it takes just a push of a button to switch between the 2 characters, depending upon the situation. Now, this game moves forward at a much faster pace than the original Revelations game. Whereas that game mostly took place on a boat, here characters are constantly moving forward from one area to the next. It's got a Resident Evil 4 vibe to it, with lots of different creepy locations to explore. The problem is that by always moving from one place to the next, it doesn't have a chance to create as memorable a setting as say the Spencer Mansion or the Queen Zenobia cruise ship. But it is interesting that Barry's campaign takes place in a lot of the same areas as Claire's, only half a year later. This means that some of the things that Claire does will affect how Barry has to proceed. It's fun to see how the time-lapse changes an area. It's a shame that this mechanic wasn't taken a little further, with Claire having an even bigger impact on Barry's environment. But by episode 3 they mainly split apart, going their own unique areas. The story's not particularly interesting here. Considering it's got a TV format, there aren't a lot of twists and turns. Whereas the first game had the BSAA, a team of specialists working to help on the mission with different characters and time periods to play through, here it's back to the basics. Claire and Moira are kidnapped and taken to a mysterious island. Many months later, Barry is sent in to find them.
Get up.
At one point Claire does bump into a few of her workmates, and here I feel like there was a real opportunity to introduce these new characters. Perhaps players could have taken control of a few of them, or at least worked alongside them for a while, but it doesn't really come to much. The enemies are some of the best that Resident Evil has ever had. They're fast, violent, creepy. Some are invisible so only Natalia can see them and point out the direction that they're in for Barry to then shoot. The game was more difficult than I expected it to be. Ammo was often low, making the scout's role of spotting hidden items even more important. There were skills and upgrades to weapons to help out, but ultimately, as stocked up on supplies as you got, it would only take one major fight and you'd be out scrounging for herbs again. Overall, the presentation of the game is actually a pretty low standard. The graphics are okay, a little blocky though, and some of the animations are a bit stiff. It had plenty of weird moments that just didn't make sense, or were flat out glitches, and it really breaks immersion when going through a door briefly fades the screen to black. For that brief second you're completely taken out of the world. Like any good complete box set, Revelations 2 comes with a ton of extra stuff to do. As well as a whole range of medals for each of the 4 episodes, there's also extra modes to unlock, like a speedrun mode or a mode where all of the enemies are invisible. Plus there are 2 extra chapters with a whole new set of rules. And of course, there's the fully upgraded raid mode, with leveling up, character customization, daily challenges, locations and enemies from a whole variety of different Resident Evil games. And all of this raiding can be done online in a co-op mode, so there's certainly a lot more to do here than just the main game. In fact, there's so much, it makes you wonder, did the main campaign suffer because so much time was put into all of this extra stuff? I'd like to think not, but who knows. Revelations 2 has its problems. The first Revelation seemed to be a different take on the Resident Evil formula, with a more story-driven campaign focusing on one large setting, whereas this one seems to have done away with that. In fact, if it wasn't episodic, it may as well have just been squeezed into the main series in between 5 and 6, as its gameplay seems more similar to those than it does Revelations. But it does have its positives. The enemies are great, and hey, it's nice to see Barry finally given the spotlight he deserves.
Well, this should give us a whole lot more options.
Thanks for watching.